everyone to the Indo-American Art Council's annual literary festival. This year, we celebrate our 6th year of bringing you authors, thought leaders, and storytellers from around the world. Many of these stories originate from the Indian subcontinent, and today we celebrate these voices that have been shaped by the Indian ethos and experience. In these unprecedented times, our collective shared experiences have uplifted us and have reshaped our perspectives. For our 2020 festival, we invite our authors to take center stage to bring people together through the art of storytelling. Today, I'd like to welcome Ms. Jyotsna Mohan, who is the author of Stone, Shame, Depressed. In her book, she investigates the secret lives of Indian teens and comes up with an eye-opening account of struggles with addiction to substances, social media and gaming, dealing with intense peer pressure, bullying, body shaming, and the resultant physical and mental health issues. This book chronicles the confused journey of Indian teens to adulthood, along a road that is full of temptation, where boundaries are easily blurred, and where the lure of easy adventure, often in the virtual world, can unleash events that have repercussions for years to come. The narrative interweaves accounts of teens, parents, teachers, and child psychologists to reveal a deeply disturbing picture of modern-day school in urban India. Jyotsna has been with NDTV for 15 years as a senior news anchor and senior news editor. She is a columnist for newspapers and digital publications in India and abroad. Moderating today's session is Ms. Manika Raikwar. She is former managing editor of NDTV. She's been a journalist for over 24 years and has covered the arenas of politics and human interest. She's currently working in the education sector. Welcome, Jyotsna. Welcome, Manika.
Neeli, thanks so much for that wonderful introduction. It was very interesting that you spoke about Jyotsna's book in the Indian context, saying that it's about Indian teens. I want to first hold up the book for our audience to see, because really it's a global book. Yes, it's set in India. She's spoken to a lot of Indian children, teenagers, students, counselors, parents. But really, and especially because of the pandemic and because all of us are going through a sense of isolation, a sense of social distancing, physical distancing, increased screen time for children, this is really a global book, because the problems that we are facing currently, I think, bring us together. The book showcases what a lot of parents must be going through, a lot of teenagers must be going through, and it addresses a lot of global problems. So not just in India, but I think around the world, people will get extremely interesting and deep insights into the lives of children with this book. Jyotsna, firstly, congratulations. Fantastic reading. I mean, I was totally immersed in the book. And I want to start with this particular line that really intrigued me, where you say, this is a generation of children that has an entire galaxy of friends, and yet they could not have been on a lonelier planet. It's almost as if it was meant to be for 2020. Where loneliness seems to be the stream, not just for children, but for adults as well. But I just want you to elaborate on that, because, I mean, at the end of the day, the internet was supposed to bring us closer together, and it's just taken us all apart.
You know, Manika, the other day, a friend's daughter called me, and she just said, "Auntie Jo, I read the book, and I just wanted to tell you that I totally identify with it." And while we're talking to, and I think both of us, we know the mother actually, but I didn't tell her that. So she basically came down to the fact that I don't have too many people that I talk to, and she's a very, very successful girl. In her 20s, just finished her college and doing amazing stuff, has her own brand, fashion brand and stuff. So she's doing wonderful stuff, okay? And then she goes on to say, I really don't. So at the end of it, I was like, how many friends do you have? She said, I have 2 friends. And that's it. We don't have friends in our generation. And I think that's pretty much it, Manika. I think they're all so busy I don't know whether it's trying to prove something to each other, or just sometimes I feel they're just so busy trying to exist in this world today where everybody has to be somebody. The pressure on these children is just so enormous that at some point I think they lose their bearings, and they really don't know what they are all about themselves. And I think they're constantly on that phone. I mean, if you ask them to go, why don't you go and meet somebody, before COVID? And I feel like COVID has been such a sharp learning curve for them, because before COVID, we would tell all our children, stop that gadget, stop the gadget, go out and play. And, when COVID came, initially that first few weeks, everybody's like, oh my God, online, we're going to get all the gadgets, and the kids are so excited. Now, 8 months later, I look at my own kids, just traumatized, Manika. They want to now get out and meet those kids in the park that we've been telling them to do. So it's come a full cycle, but yet, I mean, it's been a tough learning session for all of them. And us.
Sorry, no, and absolutely, because I don't think there's ever been a time that kids have said we're missing school, and that's just been so interesting, because like you spoke about your children, my son said the other day, he said, I'm really missing that concentration camp. And I was like, excuse me? He said, I really miss school. So it's interesting that, something that they were almost addicted to, something that they were kind of dying to have all the time, they've kind of moved away and possibly are now looking at more physical interactions.
It's, coming back to that school thing, Manika, my younger one started school. Okay, so she's 8, and they started senior school eventually, but they started junior school in the beginning. So, but she was a bit nervous because, she's not going with her sister, and she's going, and, so you kind of understand their isolation as well, and, understand what they're going through and their emotions, because they don't say it. This child came back, and it was, it broke my heart, because the first day I went to pick her up, and she tells me, so I said, how was your day? She said, it was fantastic. I actually thought I would be in a real bubble, but it wasn't so. Because, I don't know whether we are also telling them or sharing enough with them. We just expect that, they're dealing with it because we have to deal with bigger things. That's been our assumption. When it happened initially, Manika, we just went out to say, oh my God, we have to work from home. What's going to happen to our fitness? Everybody went into cooking, and we all went. And we said, here's your gadget, go and do your online studies. But I don't think we realized what it was doing to them. And it broke my heart that day. She said, oh my God. And she's really happy. Like, it was her sister's birthday. And I said, do you want to take off because your sister's at home? She said, can I take off from my evening class, which is the online dance hip hop class? Okay. But I'll go to school. And it's just like, oh my God, they are just so happy being back there, that physical interaction. I see it with my elder one. It's, Manika, she didn't meet anybody for 8 months, anybody. And studies are hard in class 7, So the first time I allowed her to meet like a couple of friends because, it was someone's birthday. She couldn't believe it. And it's really sad because, it's like they're showing us gratitude for what is rightfully theirs.
That is such an interesting line, Jo, that you're saying that they're sort of, they're thankful for something that should be normal, that they should be really, up and about doing. And, if there was ever anything good about this pandemic, after all the horrible sort of trauma that has brought us, it's hopefully that the kids will find some sort of right balance. But, again, I want to get back to the book. And it's so true because of social media and, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat. And you write about, saying that this is a generation in a hurry to expose itself, body and soul. The kids are uncomfortable being themselves. And you actually quote a young woman, and she says, we have to be bouncing off the walls to catch attention. And I thought that was just so interesting because it's not just about growing up and sort of having to deal with your regular struggles of studies or, being good at sports or, debating. Now there is a constant sense of I have to put myself out there and I have to catch as many eyeballs. It's almost like a television channel trying to get TRPs.
Manika, last year when I was working with Vikram, that office was full of millennials. So when I started dealing with those millennials, it was a shock to my system, right? I mean, they would not turn up the next morning, even if they had on a shift. And it's not something we could ever identify with, right? And you tell them, why are you not in? Oh, because I'm in corporate. Do you want to tell us? Listen, if it's okay, deal with it, else you can just sack me. It's that simple, right? Or I have nephews who are in their early 20s, and I'm looking at them saying, why are you guys not driving, right? Why don't you guys not know how to drive? And they were like, well, who needs to drive? We have Uber. You know, who needs to have a house? We'll just rent one. Okay, if it's not working, we'll go to another one. So I dealt with that shock, and then I started writing this book. And from there, it's been another drastic shock for me to, because I mean, if you thought that was like, you know, so different to how we've been brought up and how, you know, we look at stability, we look at a stable job, and, you know, having that house and, you know, building a house for the future and, you know, saving for the future. This is this generation. And then there's just this generation that just thinks everything is for the moment. Everything is to be lived in the moment. And, you know, they're not thinking of the repercussions in many instances, or they feel, and that sadly is tougher because a lot of them feel that they don't have a choice. So they have to conform to what is being, you know, what are the rules in school to be popular, to be part of the popular gang. And it's really sad because, you know, when I talk about drugs, and it's like, and I talk about the fact that it's not just the backbenchers who are having drugs. The backbenchers are having drugs so that, you know, it's like a cycle. So in some instances, they are taking over-the-counter medication so that they can deal with that enormous peer pressure and be part of that gang that, you know, achieves everything. The children who are achieving everything are having drugs so that they are part of that gang who is having fun and is cool. So there are no rules anymore. They don't know the rules. They just need to conform. And to me, honestly, that big part is that they really don't know that they have a choice. A lot of them feel they don't have a choice, that this is what they should be doing today.
You know, the pressure to conform was there even before this. And I mean, when you and I were growing up, there's always that high school peer pressure, and, you know, there's that group of popular girls and the nerds and the jocks, and there's always all of that. But I just feel that now with social media, somehow it's become paramount. So whether it's your body or how many likes you get, that children are willing to go to almost any length to kind of exist in this virtual world.
I think social media, you know, there's a lot on its shoulders, in a sense, you know. My children are not on social media, right? And the elder one, Manika, she's constantly like, why not, right? And so I put one photo of hers on Instagram once because, you know, I as parents also, we get enough pressure, right? So one day I said, okay, enough. I will put one photo. You can see her face, head, and I think it was a handstand. I put it up. But I saw that consumption, you know, that you're totally consumed with the fact that how many likes have I got, Mama? How many likes for my photo? How many likes? And I said, that's why I don't do it. Have you realized what you're doing? But that pressure is so enormous for children. It's unbelievable. Like, so she's 12 going on 15, right? And here in the UAE, TikTok is allowed. And, you know, play dates would stop. People stopped coming to our house because they said, your mother doesn't allow us to sit on a gadget. Your mother doesn't allow us to do TikTok. Your mother, you know, and I felt really bad because, you know, my children are losing out. And this is something I've seen even in instances like, you know, when I talk about gaming and stuff, about why kids get into gaming, because no one's playing with them outside because everyone's gaming. So in a sense, the same thing. So one fine day, you know, my husband said, okay, you know, we'll experiment with this. We will give you a TikTok account because, you know, you're going to every house and everyone is only TikToking, but it's a private account. So you can put your 2 friends. So the girls looked at us and they said, so what are we going to do with this? Okay, forget it. Anyway, but they kept it on, but they didn't, you know, use it because, again, everyone is doing it for sure. Now, Manika, these are kids who are 10-year-old, 11-year-old, okay, at the most. And so one fine day they come home after the play, and this is during the pandemic, okay, and this is very recent. They come in from the neighbors and they very quietly and very sheepishly say that, you know, Mama, you can take off that TikTok. And so I said, why, what happened? No, just take it off. I'm like, okay. Later on the evening, they tell me, the other one tells me that, you know, one of the friends, you know, under whose pressure they came under, and asked me to put it on. Said that, these girls, they were on TikTok just before we went over. And it was apparently a private, I don't know, but there was a live suicide streamed that these girls, these 10-year-olds saw, and the mothers and immediately took it off. My point is that why wait for this stage when we know all these things are happening? Why, especially for 10-year-old, 11-year-olds, and that's what I feel. I feel social media and that smartphone. I feel like that smartphone is the cause of many, many issues. And the earlier you give it, you're waiting for a fall. I mean, to me, in that social media cyberspace, even if you push 6 months, it makes all the difference. A 13-year-old and a 13-and-a-half-year-old, an 11-year-old, of course, an 11 and a 15, enormous gap. So you're not equipped to handle what is going on. And I think that's where the struggle is for a lot of these children. You get that phone so early. And I find that a lot of parents, Manika, at 13, 12, 13, 14, now they're trying to take back that iPad that they've given their child when that child was 6, or a phone at 6, 7. But now what they're facing is they're facing aggression and they're facing defiance and huge numbers of aggression. I have so many cases that I personally know where the children are refusing to give it back, where they're flinging things at their parents. So it's manifesting in different ways. But again, it all boils down to that the fact that there's just so much pressure to be somebody in social media. And if we're not, if your families don't have your back at home, if we're not harnessing them and telling them how to harness it in a better place, I think they're struggling, and they're really struggling.
What's interesting is that the virtual world, whether it's a gadget, a phone, an iPad, that's become your nanny, right? You can't get your child to eat, give him or her an iPad. When they're young, they start eating. You have work to do, give them a phone, so they're playing. But it's also become their world of love. It's almost as if the internet doesn't love them, if they're not loved on social media, they're not loved at all. And it's across the board. It's not just kids whose parents are separated or divorced, or it's a dysfunctional family. These are kids from well-adjusted families that are going through this massive pressure. And in your book, it was again interesting where you say love like there is only pain, and you speak about this young girl who wants to actually have surgical cosmetic changes because she doesn't like her body. And that is just scary because, the whole idea of the ugly duckling becoming this beautiful swan is actually this idea of inner beauty. It's this beautiful story of accepting yourself, and then the transformation happens. And somehow these children are just only looking at the surface.
And they're not waiting for that time, that lovely stage. Everyone is just wanting to skip that stage and just be something. It's that quick instant gratification, you need that validation and you need it instantly and you need it now. And it's really sad because I think they're getting away with it. These cosmetic surgeries, these doctors that I spoke with are flabbergasted that, sometimes the parents are coming with them and saying, it's okay. And it's just a start, right? I mean, there's this other counselor that who I spoke with, and she said, I think she talked about this teenage girl who already had sex some 15, 20 times. And she said, I really wonder, what is it that will be left for them to, deal with, experiment, see when they grow up, when they're even in their 20s, because they're just in such a hurry to be somebody else right now. And it's all what they see, Immediately after the book was released, there's a gentleman who wrote to me and said that, this is Western bullshit, quote unquote. And I told him, I said, this is precisely why I've written this book, This is the reason, because if we don't accept that these things are happening, how are we going to deal with it? You can't say these are Western things because today these children are streaming the same shows on Netflix that anybody is abroad. In our times, Manika, that cassette would come, 6 months later, and mixtape would come. We would ask our cousins in the US, can you give us that Casey Kasem's top 100 or whatever, and it would come. They're watching the same shows. They're watching everything instantly. Their knowledge is the same today. The only problem with some of our children back home is that even though their knowledge is same, they don't find the channels to communicate it with their parents. And I think that is perhaps the only difference we may see in say in the schools in the US versus schools back home. Because when I've got friends in the US who tell me that their children, if they go and ask for the morning after pill and they're over 16, their parents will not be told. It's that kind of privacy, because they're looking to deal with, as we discussed, Manika, they're looking to deal with teen pregnancies because they know what they can deal with, what they can't. In India, we're not accepting that these issues. I mean, now imagine a child going into an Indian school and asking for that. It's not possible. We're still at that nascent stage when it comes to sex education. So many children still tell you that okay, it's there, but it's not adequate. It's not enough. So I think we're dealing with so much, and I think unless we accept that our children have changed today, that they are not willing to be what we were in our times. I mean, I was speaking to somebody our age, and she said even today we're scared of our parents. We're scared of what our parents are going to say about certain issues, and it's true. If I do something, I'm like, oh my God, are my parents going to react like this? These children don't have any fear. And I think that's where that's where it comes down to. So if we don't try and speak to them, I think we're going to really be struggling ourselves as parents.
So that's really the point, isn't it? What you said a little while earlier about these children, these teenagers being in a hurry, in a constant hurry, and also obviously, when you're growing up, you're curious about your bodies, you're curious about what you're seeing, you want to try out new things, but there is also this sense of constant adrenaline, always wanting a new high. And how is that satisfied? Because life is not just about highs. You are going to at some time plateau. There will also be falls. And somehow, I don't know whether we are teaching this generation, or whether it's learning to deal with the falls, the pitfalls of life.
No, I think that's where that whole helicopter parenting and that playground politics comes in, where I sense that a lot of families barge in. And I say the same. I say we're not letting our children fall, because it's very important for them to fall and to get up, and to learn to fall again, to get up. And I think a lot of the families are barging in, not letting their child fall. They're giving them that money. They're going into schools. A lot of schools, they say that we want to intervene, but we're stuck for the simple reason that we are scared that these parents are going to come and agitate outside our doors, and and it's happened to us, so we don't want to get into that position, so we just let things go. But unless we let these children, the problem is also, Manika, as adults, as in our generation, I think we've not demarcated between what's a mistake and what is something that we don't like personally as a society. So if children are caught making out or getting intimate, and ideally it's a mistake, they're experimenting, we will say let's come home, let's have a word. We're not going to shun them, but as a society we tend to shun them. And I think that balance is yet to come, and I think we're a really long way away from making our society understand. And I can tell you the kind of reactions I've got from the book, as expected, but somebody said, oh, you really exaggerated the vices. And I said, I wish I had. There's nothing that I have conjured up here. Everything is case studies. These are children talking to you. Now, even now, if you're not going to realize that this is what's happening, then, they're going to do their own thing, and we're going to be in deeper trouble later on. But it's very instant. And I think they also grapple with the fact that because they don't have anybody to talk to back home, like, this child who I asked him, and I said, he started having marijuana at the age of 13. And his thing was that I started it initially, because of that whole concept of, it's legal in some countries and all that stuff. And then I went, and then it became this whole thing that I would even have a joint before going to watch a movie. And it became an experience enhancer. And my question to him was, why is it that just going to the movies is not good enough? Why is that experience not good enough for you? And his answer was really like, because a lot of us wouldn't want to do something like this if we didn't feel that there's a void inside us. And we feel that there's a void, and we feel that, we tend to want to do these things because we want to numb reality. And, and these kind of things that, social media, drugs, all these things, they're not people that will desert us. These are things that stand by us. So it's that kind of logic, Manika, and it's really sad in a sense, because a lot of these lives and Instagram lives that I've done have had a lot of young children, and a lot of young, in that, by that I mean, even in their 20s, and a lot of them have written in saying that, can you just tell us one thing? How can we communicate with our parents? And I say that, a lot of parents like you, me, we're on the ball, and even then we have challenges. And I've met a lot of other parents, completely, who are clued in and are still dealing with their child who's, a topper who's gone into depression, from depression is still going on without weak joints in front of his parents, because everything is open, right? And then I look at these children who are still struggling, and they want to talk. Maybe they have issues, maybe they're dealing with so much. But as a society, we don't acknowledge it. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they were asked to leave the school because they were making out. But if we're never going to talk about it, how are we going to move forward?
Absolutely. I think communication is key, whether it's within society, whether it's between parents and children, whether it's between teachers and students. And it's interesting because, if we communicate, perhaps we can be kinder, we can be more empathetic. And I bring those 2 points up because you write in your book about bullying and about, children going through so much trauma. And again, whether we're failing because they don't speak about it at home. Sometimes schools fail to deal with it. But somehow, and my question in all of this to you is, how do we make our children kinder? I mean, I think as a society, we should attempt it. But I think somewhere we have to teach our children to be just a little more caring.
Find them to be really lacking in empathy, just as you said, they don't have it. And everything is so casual, Manika, whether it is that bullying and, your best friend started seeing some boys. So, I've been left alone. So, guess what? I'm going to take a video of them getting intimate and I will just post it and upload it. Everything is so casual, so casual. Every single child that I spoke with for this book, Manika, I just had one basic question. And I said, why is there so much angst in your generation? Why are you such a sensitive generation? Why are you not kinder to people around you? They don't really have answers, and they just dismiss it by saying that this is how we are. This is how we are, and because we're not like you doesn't make us bad. It's very tricky. I mean, how does one deal with it? I've had a lot of questions after writing this book myself, because also because I find that things are so casual. We didn't do well, so let's overdose. We didn't look nice in a photo, so let's slash our wrists. Everything is just about themselves.
And it's almost contradictory, because in this generation, you do see them caring more about causes, whether it's climate change or, in the West about, Black Lives Matter. I mean, it is the youth that is coming out. So there is that whole aspect where they're really sort of challenging these traditional, deep-rooted, absolutely terrible ideas, and hopefully trying to make a better future for themselves. But yes, there is that whole sense of we don't care. So I think the balance there is just so. Jyotsna, we can talk all night, but I want to sort of wrap up by asking you if there were like your top 3 things to tell parents and children and teachers all over the world, because really this is a book for everyone. What would those top 3 things be?
God, I have so many. I can go on. Okay, so one thing, one of the big ones, I think the last chapter, Manika, gaming. I wrote it right in the end. I think I told you this as well. And I told Swati, my editor, the same thing that, I'm writing. I think this is going to be the lamest one. And so I kept pushing it to the end because, I didn't know if I would have enough case studies and material to, as the other 5 chapters. But by the time I finished it, it was a revelation. It was a revelation for me. And I think gaming is so underestimated by parents that, you have no idea what's going on. It's not just your normal gaming. If your child is playing that multiplayer game, 20, 30, out of those 10, 15, 20 are not who they think they are, those pop-up chats, there's another alternate world going on. In the pop-up chats, there is just so much grooming going on. There is so many predators out there through gaming that it is scary, and it's happening in India. We can't just say it's happening, it's a Western phenomena again, because it's not. It's happening here. There are just so many cases where you start talking to them through the pop-up chats, just talk about this stage in the game, we'll go to the next stage, you build up that trust, and then you take those conversations offline, and you're taking these conversations onto WhatsApp, and then it's the same thing. These are predators, and they're recording you, and then they're blackmailing you. So I think that gaming is something where I feel like parents need to really look hard where their kids are playing, and not just give them unrestricted freedom. The second thing I think again is conversations, and to open everything in your homes, because I think the moment you take the mystery away, you demystify things, you take that taboo away, I think conversations become easy. I mean, to give you an instant, when the vaping incident happened in my daughter's class, she was in class 5, and it's not like, and these were her class boys, and she came and said, Mama, these boys, they've been asked to leave because they were caught vaping. But Manika, it's not like she came home and started typing or trying to look what is vaping. She already knew about it because we've talked about it. There's no stigma around anything in my house. But then she also knows that the fact, even though I'm normalized that these things happen, doesn't mean she has to go around it. I mean, she has to go around it. Doesn't mean she has to get involved in them. So I've tried to take the stigma away with things. I've tried to normalize that, drugs happen, that, kids make mistakes. I'm sure there are going to be challenges for me going forward as well, and for you as well. I mean, it's a tricky world out there, but, we're doing the best we can. And I think lastly is social media gadgets. I personally feel the longer you can push it by not giving your child a phone, the better position they will be later on when they get it. I mean, to give you an instance, and I think I've written about this in the book as well. I've got a friend, she's not given her son a phone. He's 16 now. I told her, I said, now enough, give it. Okay, even by my strict standards, I said, give it. So she said, he's disappearing for his GCSEs and I will give it. But she went through a harrowing time. She would come and try and say that I feel like I'm the worst mom in the world. I feel awful. Even my best friends are coming and telling me, what are you doing to your son? She said, now today he turns around and says, I'm actually glad he didn't give it because I don't miss it anymore. And he's become like this amazing guitar player. And he says it himself, that I won't have learned to do these other things if I had the phone. And, and the same thing, she said, Jo, at the end of the day, not one person has come to me and said, why are you doing this? You're making a mistake. Every single person came up to me and said, how did you manage it? Tell us the trick, and that's the thing, because there's so many children that I spoke with, Manika, they say that, it's an addiction for them to be on the phone. It's an addiction to be online. Some of them say they'd rather not be, but they don't know what else to do, because, if they don't know, if they're not being taught to be anything else, what are they going to do? They feel like, some days they say that, we try and keep that phone away, but then we keep looking at it and we wonder, whether what's come up on Instagram or, have I got likes or what somebody's, update. So we just take it. But we understand that it's wrong and we understand that it's an addiction. So I think that, to me, that is critical. I'm struggling with it myself. So I haven't given mine yet. But every year, next year, I'm going to get it. So I said, okay, we'll see. So I push it. I feel the same thing. The longer you push it, a 13 is better than a 12 and a 14 is better than a 12. So, it comes down to that. Parenting is personal, though, Manika. These are my personal views.
No, I think the big message is there's a big, wide world outside of your phone. Put it down, put it away, lock it up in a drawer. Look outside, it's beautiful, and especially now after the pandemic, when you get out.
I think we have to learn to do it. We have to learn to do it ourselves. They're watching us.
Absolutely.
If we look at social media as a toy, we don't have a leg to stand on and tell them, get off.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jo, you're going to learn to play the guitar, and I'm going to, try a hand at the piano, and those are our goals. You can all tell us what yours are. Thanks, Jyotsna, so much. Yes, we're going to form a band.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you so much, Manika. This was an intriguing session. Many of the issues that you're discussing are are so pertinent globally, whether it's India or abroad. I believe that if you're a parent, if you're a teen, if you are in your 20s, this book will resonate with everyone, especially during a pandemic. This in and of itself is talking to another type of pandemic. And we really thank you for your time today. The Indo-American Arts Council thanks you both, Joe, Manika, for bringing us this session today.
Thank you for having us.
And for those of you who are interested, you could get Stone Shame Depressed from Amazon, wherever you are. And we will put the links in the post and in our bios. So thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Neely Lakhani, IAAC Literary Festival Director. I want to thank you for joining our award-winning authors and their wondrous stories. IAAC is a 501c nonprofit. Programs like the one you just watched happen because of contributions from generous folks like you. Please donate to the IAAC so that we can support our artists and sustain our cultural programs. It is simple to donate by visiting the IAAC website at iaac.us. Learn about the insider benefits that membership gives you. On behalf of the entire IAAC board, stay safe and see you at our next event. Thank you.